If you're looking to create, grow, and sustain your wealth, download and subscribe to the Pain Points of Wealth podcast at BeBullish.com with Bob, Ryan, and Chris Payne. It's your podcast for market insights, money tips, and real talk on the economy. Download and subscribe at BeBullish.com.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Commercial Insurance. Business owners, meet Progressive Insurance. They make it easy to get discounts on commercial auto insurance and find coverages to grow with your business. Quote in as little as 8 minutes at progressivecommercial.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company. Coverage provided and serviced by affiliated and third-party insurers. Discounts and coverage selections not available in all states or situations.
This is the Stone Zone with Roger Stone.
People love him and respect him. Roger Stone.
Now, get in the zone. It's the Stone Zone. Here's Roger Stone.
You are now entering the Stone Zone. You know, generally speaking, I think social media has been a good thing for America. I'm talking about X, formerly known as Twitter, Facebook, Truth Social, Instagram, TikTok. It's broken the mainstream media's monopoly on news. So now any articulate, well-read and informed researcher who can type has as much authority and as much public access as the once great New York Times. Without the internet, without social media on the internet, Donald Trump would actually never have been elected president in 2016. It was only the fact that we had an uncensored, unfettered internet then that he was able to mount a counterattack on the many establishment opponents to his candidacy. I remember explaining to him in the beginning, that this was 2015, how Twitter worked, and he was shocked and pleased to see that his words would reverberate around the world, and it would cost him virtually nothing. I pointed out to him that one of his Manhattan real estate arch rivals, who shall remain nameless, poured millions and millions of dollars into the failing New York Daily News so that he could dominate the editorial pages of that publication, paying a high premium to have a public voice, whereas Donald Trump could do all of that for free. But then 2017 came, and thanks to Elon Musk, who upon purchasing Twitter and converting it and improving it to become X, also released all of the proof that people at the highest levels of our federal government, those in the intelligence agencies, had worked hand in glove with executives on Twitter to ban anyone, cancel anyone who supported Donald Trump, who questioned the outcome of the 2020 election, who questioned the safety and effectiveness of the COVID-19 vaccination, who questioned the corrupt dealings of the Biden family. So this is not conjecture or supposition. We know that we continue to be subjected to widespread censorship on the internet. While I think X and Truth Social are largely, not completely, but largely uncensored, there are still conservatives who deserve to be restored at X. But generally speaking, I think those are the more prolific sites when it comes to free speech. But just to kind of prove my point, several weeks ago, I started a new feed at Instagram. I ended up choosing Roger Stone MAGA, and I began very judiciously posting there. Now, I was posting both written content, but also posting what they call reels, short videos. And it wasn't very long before I started to get very real traction. I went from 537 followers to more than 15,000 followers when I got notice that my profile had been canceled. And the reason they gave me was that my postings were inauthentic. Now, let me note that I subsequently received a notification saying that I had 2 strikes against me for violating their community standards, but I don't know what those strikes were since I was never informed of them. I don't think I actually violated any of their community standards. It turns out, I learned today that the reason they thought that my postings were inauthentic is because Instagram has decided that I am dead. That's right. Roger Stone, the 74-year-old American political consultant and strategist, they didn't even get my age right, passed away on Saturday, November 16th, 2024, at the Joan and Howard Woltz Hospice Home in Dobson, North Carolina. Stone was born on May 11th, 1950, in Grayson County, Virginia, grew up in Mount Airy, North Carolina. Stone graduated from North Surrey High School in 1968. Stone's death occurred at the age of 74 after a life marked by his involvement in American politics. Roger Stone was a well-known figure in American politics, having worked on various presidential campaigns, including those of Richard Nixon, Ronald Reagan, and Donald Trump. His legacy is marked by controversy and scrutiny, with many remembering him for his polarizing tactics and strategies. Oh my God, these people have declared me dead. Well, reports of my death are greatly exaggerated because obviously I am alive and well. I most certainly wasn't born in Virginia. I was born in Norwalk, Connecticut. I did not go to school in North Carolina. I'm a graduate of John Jay High School in Katona, New York, in the New York suburbs in northern Westchester County. This is a classic example of how they'll use any excuse to cancel you. So for those who think that post-Trump re-election, the internet is an uncensored place, think again. I'm still banned for life on Facebook, by the way, because somebody testified to Robert Mueller's investigation that I had hundreds of fake Facebook profiles that I used to spread disinformation. None of that, of course, is true, but a research operation funded by George Soros produced a fake report along those lines. It gave them an excuse to ban me. Meanwhile, President Donald Trump today announcing that after a long phone conversation with Vladimir Putin, that he will go and meet the Russian leader in Budapest. This to me is very, very good news. The Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, posted subsequently a little bit more detail from the president. The president actually said, "I've concluded my television conversation with Russian President Vladimir Putin, and it was very productive one. President Putin congratulated me and the United States on the great accomplishments of peace in the Middle East, something that, he said, has been dreamed of for centuries. I actually believe that the success in the Middle East will help us in our negotiations in attaining an end to the war between Russia and Ukraine." President Putin thanked the First Lady, Melania, for her involvement with children. He was very appreciative and said that that will continue. He also spent a great deal of time talking about trade between Russia and the United States when the war with Ukraine is over. At the conclusion of the call, we agreed that there will be a meeting of our high-level advisors next week. The United States' initial meetings will be led by Secretary of State Marco Rubio, together with various other people to be designated. A meeting location is to be determined. President Putin and I will then meet in an agreed-upon location, Budapest, Hungary, to see if we can bring this inglorious war between Russia and Ukraine to an end. President Zelensky and I will meet tomorrow in the Oval Office, this is President Trump speaking, where we will discuss my conversations with President Putin and much more. I really believe great progress was made with today's telephone conversation. I really read this as excellent news. It's very clear to me that there must have been real substance to today's calls. I noticed that Hungarian President Viktor Orban posted on X that he'd spoken to the president by phone and that preparations are already being made for this peace conclave in Budapest. So every American prays that this will be the end to a particularly bloody war in which hundreds of thousands on both sides have died. Once again, I reiterate that I believe President Donald Trump should be the recipient of the Nobel Peace Prize, but one of my listeners today pointed out something I didn't know. Alfred Nobel's greatest accomplishment was he was the inventor of dynamite. That's right, he was essentially a merchant of death. And therefore he set up the Nobel Peace Prize Committee, or the Nobel Committee, in order to rehabilitate his image. He would have you believe that he was a man of peace, when in reality that was not the case. Now, the 2024 Nobel Peace Prize has already been awarded to Maria Mahaldo. I guess she's the leader of the Venezuelan resistance, and I think she probably is worthy. But I've said repeatedly that she should accept the award. Maria Corina Mahaldo. She should accept the award and give it to President Donald Trump. I still believe that very, very strongly. In the meantime, the continuing saga of James Comey is before us. Comey, who, as you know, has been charged in the Eastern District of Virginia, has signaled that he intends to have his indictment dismissed on the basis that the attorney or the sitting U.S. attorney who charged him, Lindsay Halligan, was improperly seated. I've studied the case law on this. I think he has got a weak case. Very clearly, the president had the authority to fill the job of U.S. attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia. He appointed Eric Siebert. Siebert was not confirmed by the Senate. The judges in this district then appointed Siebert to the seat. That's the tip-off that Siebert is a deep state quisling. Siebert never disclosed that he had a meaningful conflict of interest because his father-in-law, his wife's father, was the godfather to James Comey's daughter. On that basis alone, he should have recused himself, but now we learn that Comey's own attorney, Patrick Fitzgerald, is linked to the very crime that Comey is charged with. In other words, Comey gave classified files to Patrick Fitzgerald, his now attorney, who passed them on to a fellow Daniel Richman, another attorney who's a friend of Comey's, who leaked them to the New York Times. That is precisely the crime that Comey lied about. He's lying about the fact that he directed people to leak material to create bad press for Donald Trump. What will happen? Will a trial court judge rule that Lindsay Halligan is not eligible, or will they take up an appeal that Patrick Fitzgerald should not be allowed to represent FBI Director Comey? We shall see. More about this coming up right here in the Stone Zone. Whatever you do, don't touch that dial.
The Stone Zone, entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
The continuing saga of Letitia James and her mortgage fraud continued for yet another day. Yesterday I told you that it turned out that the home in Norfolk, Virginia, that the New York Attorney General Letitia James lied on her application to obtain a mortgage for, was actually being used as the home of her niece, Nakia Thompson. Now, it is clear, to make it clear, James signed a power of attorney in connection with the closing of that mortgage, in which she specifically said that she would live with her niece at that location. Well, it turns out that Nakia Thompson is a jailbird. She's actually has a criminal record spanning almost 20 years in the states of both Virginia and North Carolina. She's currently a what would you call, she's an absconder. I'm trying to use the exact word here. She's an absconder. She was charged with contributing with delinquency to a minor, abuse of a child, possession of burglary tools, third-degree larceny, assault and battery, trespassing, shoplifting, resisting arrest, and disorderly conduct, as well as possession of a marijuana, driving with suspended license, and even malicious conduct while incarcerated. So she is a fugitive from justice, being harbored in Virginia on a non-extraditable crimes basis by the highest law enforcement official in the state of New York. But today, this story took on a new turn. Turns out that Letitia James is housing a second felon family member at her properties in Virginia. The New York Post reveals that her other grandniece, Kayla Thompson Hairston, 21 years old, who also happens to be an OnlyFans star with a public X-rated social media presence, was charged in April 2024 with lying about her felony criminal record when she tried to buy a gun in Suffolk, Virginia. Kayla was legally disqualified from owning the firearm due to an August 2020 felony conviction of malicious wounding, which Virginia law defines as a crime in which the person shoots, stabs, cuts, or wounds any other person. Thompson Hairston was a juvenile at the time, therefore the records of her full case are sealed. It has now been revealed that she lives in a second home owned by James in Virginia, which is the centerpiece of the federal criminal scrutiny over mortgage documents that James has signed. James is actually facing 60 years in prison for bank fraud and for making false statement charges after federal prosecutors, namely Lindsay Halligan, accused her of lying on mortgage applications for the house where sister Nakia Thompson lives. This entire saga continues, despite the fact that James denies any wrongdoing and claims this is all due to a clerical error, when in fact, courts traditionally take a pattern into consideration, and the sad truth is that Letitia James has a 43-year of mortgage fraud. When Letitia James says that this is not a crime, please keep this in mind. Letitia James, as Attorney General, has actually charged and convicted individuals for doing the exact same thing that she herself is charged with. I'm Roger Stone. You're in the Stone Zone. We're talking hot American politics, and we have more coming right up. So whatever you do, don't go away.
The Stone Zone, entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back. You're in the Stone Zone, where we talk politics 5 times a week. Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is vowing to do everything in her power to keep the federal government closed until President Trump agrees to approve an expansion of government health care subsidies that includes illegal immigrants. Now, the federal government has been shut for several weeks. Anybody out there who feels any real difference in their everyday life, you can contact me at stone@stonezone.com. That's stone@stonezone.com. So far, no one has taken me up on this, which shows you how entirely useful this enormous federal monolith is. During town hall interview with Senator Bernie Sanders on CNN, AOC said, "We need to see legislation. I think we see votes, and I think we need to see these things pass on the floor of the House and the Senate and be signed by President Trump. I don't accept IOUs. I'm not accepting pinky promises. That's not the business I'm in." It's always funny to watch AOC, a former bartender with no particular qualifications to be a member of Congress, calling other people stupid on social media. AOC wants President Trump to approve a continuing resolution to fund the government that would repeal parts of President Trump's big, beautiful bill and unban federal government funds from being used to cover medical expenses for illegal aliens. This is part of the radical agenda of the Democrats to allow illegal aliens into the country, along with the drugs and the crimes that they bring with them. Bribe those illegals with nice government benefits and then give them the ability to vote, so they vote for Democrats in perpetuity. That's really the plan. It is to change the makeup of the American electorate. Had Hillary Clinton been elected president, followed by Kamala Harris, all of this would have happened by now. It is only the fact that Donald Trump was elected in 2016 and then made the most miraculous comeback in American political history in 2024 that this agenda has not already been enacted. So AOC is a cheerleader for this agenda. This is an agenda that is ravaging the American people. She is, in my opinion, just as dangerous as she is stupid. Meanwhile, the Trump administration is having the IRS go after organizations that receive charity designations but are involved in funding and fomenting left-wing terrorism across the country. Acting IRS Commissioner Scott Bessent, who is also the Treasury Secretary, and who, by the way, is, in my opinion, one of the absolute standouts in the Trump cabinet. Scott Bessent, a libertarian, strong believer in cryptocurrency, strong believer in gold, really an outside-the-box thinker, who I think in a perfect world really would like to repeal the federal income tax as well as the Federal Reserve Act of 1913. But Secretary Bessent is the man tasked with smoking out these terrorist networks. President Trump has noted that many Antifa terrorists show up with similar signs, identical shields, and other gear that helps them impede ICE and commit other acts of terror in the streets. The administration does not believe this is a coincidence. Well, duh. During an exchange with Department of Housing Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, President Trump said, "This is a sick situation, but those people are anarchists. Those are people who want to overthrow the government, and they're really degenerates, and they're dangerous. We're finding out now who is supplying all those beautiful signs and everything else." Well, my curiosity goes beyond the signs. I want to know who is supplying the pallets of bricks, who is supplying the flatbed trucks to move them around, who is supplying the bus loads that bus in rent-a-terrorist demonstrators, who's paying for the lawyers who immediately rush to bail out anyone who is arrested for these illegal activities. In 2020, we saw the northeastern United States burning. We saw millions of dollars of damage to both public and private property. We saw thousands of people injured. We actually saw many citizens killed. Yet there were fewer than 200 prosecutions from all of that mayhem. Who paid for that mayhem? Scott Bessent, the Secretary of Treasury, has confirmed that the IRS is compiling lists under his watch. He calls the operation to crack down in Antifa and other far-left organizations mission critical. The heart of the operation is believed to be the Open Society Foundations, which are generously funded by George Soros and his son, Alex. His son, Alex Soros, seems to have been the one to whom the baton has been passed. That umbrella organization, along with the Tides Foundation, funds many subversive entities, such as Indivisible, a group that was founded to stop President Trump by any means necessary. They've hidden behind their nonprofit status to shield their donors and to mask their true intentions for way too long, in my opinion. These organizations must be stripped of their nonprofit designation. They must be treated as criminal terrorist enterprises they are and closed down. Those who have been paid to foment mayhem, violence, and death should be prosecuted. The time has most definitely come. As I said earlier, President Donald Trump's record of peace is unprecedented in this era, or perhaps throughout the annals of time. Just to remind you, he has negotiated peace deals or ceasefires between India and Pakistan, Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of Congo, Azerbaijan and Armenia, and most recently and impressively, Israel and Hamas, leading to the release of our hostages. But there's one conflict that stubbornly continues despite President Trump's best peacemaking efforts, and that, of course, is the war between Russia and Ukraine. The Russia-Ukraine war is an important project for the globalists. They want to keep it going as long as possible, no matter how many men, women, and children are thrown into the meat grinder needlessly as a result. President Trump spoke about this today after a long phone conversation with Russian President Vladimir Putin. Intends to meet with the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky tomorrow. The president seems to be acting very quickly. He's announced a meeting with Vladimir Putin in Budapest, Hungary, and a meeting tomorrow with Zelensky in the White House. President Trump has announced that he's considering giving Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine, with the message clearly being sent to Putin that there needs to be a joint legitimate negotiation and settlement, or the Russians will face the consequences. This is what peace through strength looks like. Not boots on the ground, not sending troops to endless foreign war, but projecting American strength. This is how he ended the conflict between Israel and Iran with a ceasefire. This is the peace through strength philosophy of Dwight Eisenhower and Ronald Reagan. It is not the neocon philosophy of the Bushes, the Clintons, the Bidens, and the Obamas, where we went to endless foreign war. I think it is notable that President Donald Trump is the only president in modern times who did not start any wars during his first term, and now in his second term, he seems to be ending war. So let us continue to pray for President Trump that he's able to bring an end to this war that is being waged for the purpose of NATO expansion, as well as enriching the military-industrial complex. When I had Congressman Tim Burchett on my show the other day, he mentioned that there's substantial evidence that a lot of the money that the taxpayers are shelling out for the war in Ukraine is getting filtered back to U.S. lawmakers. Elon Musk has also made reference to that. I'd really like to know how many members of Congress have offshore bank accounts and how much is in them. I think that's a legitimate question. While we're at it, there's one other legitimate question I'd like the answer to. Remember when Elon Musk was the head of DOGE, the Operation for Government Efficiency, where he uncovered not millions, not billions, but trillions of dollars of waste, fraud, and corruption in federal spending? Well, at that time, Elon Musk announced that he was going to inspect the country's gold reserve that is held in two places. One of them is in Fort Knox, Kentucky. The other one is at the New York offices of the Federal Reserve, presumably in a vault. But then we heard nothing more about that. So where is the gold? Does it still exist? Or has it been stolen? Or has it somehow otherwise been misappropriated? Interestingly enough, the answer would really not affect the value of today's currency, since in 1971, Richard Nixon, in what I think was probably his greatest single mistake, took the United States off the gold standard. So today, the paper dollars in your pocket or in your wallet or in your purse are backed by nothing. They're backed by the full faith and credit of the United States. So if we were to learn that the gold is gone, it actually would not affect our current monetary system. It's pretty crazy. I'd really like to know why no one has inspected the gold and where the gold is. Meanwhile, the Minnesota elections director, Paul Linnell, admitted that that state's far-left sanctuary policies have been enabling illegal immigrants to vote. Minnesota is one of the states that has begun issuing driver's licenses to illegal immigrants. Because the state issues these driver's licenses, that allows illegal immigrants to vote by using the driver's licenses as their voter ID. Now, Minnesota State Representative Patty Anderson said, so let's give a driver's license to anyone here. You don't have to be a citizen. So if anyone comes in, they register, they have a driver's license, but they have an incorrect Social Security or no Social Security number or whatever, then they become incomplete. But if you walk in to vote with that driver's license, does that make them all of a sudden okay? Linnell actually responded to this question. If the illegal immigrant presents an election judge with that acceptable identification document, that would clear the challenge from the roster and they would be permitted to cast a vote. There it is. There's the admission of the state registrar of voters admitting that all you need is a driver's license in order to vote in Minnesota. Now we understand how Tim Walz became governor. Now we understand why Democrats have done so well in that state. This is exactly what these incomprehensible policies to give driver's licenses to illegals are designed to do. Several years ago, there was a huge fight in New York as to whether illegals should be given driver's licenses. Democrats want their invader constituency to have an easy way to vote, for them to continue to give them free stuff like health care, as Democrats push for illegals to receive in this year's federal budget. And they have the burden, of course, borne on the backs of the American taxpayers. The revolt against illegal immigration, led by President Trump, is a revolt on behalf of the forgotten men and women of America, the ones who have been left behind by a system that harbors contempt and ill will against them. It's time, I think, to ban all sanctuary policies that give harbor to illegal immigrants, and it is definitely time to require citizenship and proof of citizenship when you vote. No, that's not racist, it's not discriminatory, and it's not outrageous. It's very clear to me that only people who are eligible to vote should vote in our federal and state elections. That's what we have a constitution for. How many illegals voted in the last presidential election would be an extraordinary question. Actually, when I finish the show today, I'm going to go online and ask a couple of the AI platforms that very question. AI is a great thing, except for when it's not. I remember very well seeing videos of myself saying things that I never said about the last election. So while I think AI, like social media, is a great development for America, I do think there need to be restrictions when it comes to falsification of identity. Otherwise, you could make videos of Donald Trump or whoever, Barack Obama, saying things they never actually said. The January 6th committee actually did this in my case, creating videos and audios, mixing and matching to put words in my mouth that I never said. But we can't pursue that. Why? Because the January 6th committee members destroyed all the records of that illicit and illegal probe before they shut down. I'm Roger Stone. You're listening to the Stone Zone here on the Red Apple Audio Networks. We'll be back with more American politics on the other side, so don't go away.
The Stone Zone, entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
FBI Director Kash Patel has announced that foreign espionage cases have risen 50% since the new administration took over. At a press conference, Patel said, "We've gone after espionage activities against our main counterparts in China, Russia, and Iran. In China alone, we've had over a 50% increase in espionage arrests and prosecutions. In Iran, we've had a 50% increase again in espionage cases. And in Russia, we've had a 33% increase in espionage cases alone." These instances, of course, include the most recently State Department employee Ashley Tellis, who was charged with taking classified information and then colluding with the Chinese regime, and one also Michael Shenna, who was convicted of conspiring to give key national defense information to the Chinese. Foreign nationals from China, Iran, and Armenia have also been charged with acts like smuggling AI chips to get around tariffs, money laundering, conspiracy, and outright espionage. This is exactly the type of precedent that needs to be set. Every individual who shows lack of loyalty and patriotism must be castigated. No longer can we allow our enemies to hide behind their constitutional rights as they sow the seeds of our own destruction. These people must be punished, and they must be done so very quickly to send a message that foreign invasion is no longer tolerated. I'm still curious about the case of one Robert Malley. Robert Malley worked for the Biden State Department, where very clearly he took and sent classified documents regarding Israel to the Iranian regime. While Malley was suspended and his security clearance was revoked, he was never prosecuted. Yet his Confederates remained inside the State Department, where the same trafficking of classified documents to the Iranian regime continued. This is the largest single spy infiltration in the United States since Alger Hiss, the Russian spy, was nailed by Congressman Richard Nixon. Nixon was vilified over many decades for the Hiss case. It was the Alger Hiss case that brought him to national prominence and gave him his anti-communist credentials. Many people don't realize this, but after the Soviet Union fell and the KGB documents became publicly available, we learned that Alger Hiss was indeed a Russian spy at the highest levels of the Roosevelt administration. So Nixon was right. Of course, you'll never read that in the New York Times or the Washington Post. It is a time when we now have an FBI director and a director of national intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, who are very serious about the efforts to infiltrate every strata of American society. But let's be very clear. I think our number one detractor on the national stage are the Communist Chinese. We know that the Chinese Communist Party has set up these police stations across the United States where they allegedly track their own Chinese citizens looking for disloyalty to that brutal regime. But I believe that these police stations are actually spy stations, very similar to one that's been set up in Cuba, by the way. Cuba today has a very sophisticated spy station set up to spy on the United States. Also, like 1962, there are missiles on the Cuban Isle. Yes, they are defensive missiles, but within an hour and a few technological changes, I'm told by experts that they can be made offensive missiles. This is a danger which the Biden administration ignored, but which I hope that the Trump administration does not ignore. I sleep better knowing that Kash Patel is on the job as the FBI director, although the idea that they have cleaned house in that agency is still not so. We still have FBI agents harassing citizens who supported Donald Trump. We still have a number of bad actors within the FBI. But in the end, I believe in Kash Patel. I believe in his appointment. I believe he serves this nation and the president well. That's about it for us today on the Stone Zone. Thank you for joining us 5 times a week where we talk news, history, politics, a little more politics after that. If you love politics, if you've got politics in your blood like I do, the Stone Zone is the place for you to be 5 times a week. Until we meet again, God bless you and, well, Godspeed.
Thanks for listening to The Stone Zone with Roger Stone. You can hear The Stone Zone with Roger Stone weeknights at 8 on 77 WABC. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?
If you're looking to create, grow, and sustain your wealth, download and subscribe to the Pain Points of Wealth podcast at BeBullish.com with Bob, Ryan, and Chris Payne. It's your podcast for market insights, money tips, and real talk on the economy.
Download and subscribe
at BeBullish.com.